Today on AMC Movie Talk, John and Jimmy discuss the upcoming Avatar sequels, Craig returning as Bond, and Al Pacino playing Joe Paterno. This and a whole bunch more. Hang tight, AMC Movie Talk starts right now.
Welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. This is episode number 12, originally recorded on Monday, September the 10th, 2012, at the beautiful AMC Burbank 16 in Burbank, California. Avatar, Avatar, Avatar. Thanks so much for joining us. Sit back and enjoy the show. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I am your host. My name is John Campy. I'm the senior editor here at AMC Movie News. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, listen, for those of you who are watching us live right now, you can look to the side of the streaming video right now, and you can see a little tab that says social chat. And you can jump in there and chat with us throughout the show. You can leave your comments and questions. And back there at the production desk is Candon. Cannon Jackson's back there. She's going to be following your text messages and your messages on the chat board right there. And if you have any questions you want brought up that we address at the end of the show, fire them in there. She'll take note of them and she'll bring them up to us at the end of the show. And just have a good time chatting with each other as we talk a little bit about some movie news today. As always, we're going to start today getting you caught up to date with everything going on in the world of movie news with our news flash. Starting off with this. Fresh off her appearance in The Dark Knight Rises, actress Juno Temple is reportedly in talks to appear with Harry Potter himself, Daniel Radcliffe, in the new supernatural thriller Horns. Supernatural thrillers seem to be Radcliffe's new things ever since he was in Woman in Black last year. The film is set to be directed by Piranha 3D director Alexander Aja. Former Spider-Man Tobey Maguire is set to play the lead voice in the upcoming animated film Cardboard, based on the graphic novel by the same name by Doug Tenniple, if I'm pronouncing his name right. The story is described as, when a cardboard creature comes magically to life, a boy must save his town from disaster. The new musical comedy starring Anna Kendrick, Pitch Perfect, was scheduled to open in theaters everywhere on October 5th. However, the studio has just announced that the film will open in limited release a week earlier on September 28th and then roll out nationwide the following week. Speculation is that since Pitch Perfect has been getting positive feedback from test audiences, a limited release will build positive fan buzz prior to the October 5th wide opening date. I'm personally planning on seeing it. Harry Potter alumnus David Thewlis, speaking of names I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing right, who played Remus Lupin in the franchise, is said to be joining the cast of Dredd 2. I personally absolutely love the first Dredd movie. As information dealer The Frog. Thewlis will be joining John Malkovich, Mae Louise Parker, Helen Mirren, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Byung-Hung Lee, and Carl Urban. Dredd 2 is set to hit AMC theaters everywhere on August 2nd, 2013. Last week, we reported that Avatar producer John Landau dismissed stories that James Cameron would be shooting a fourth Avatar film back-to-back with parts 2 and 3. However, Cameron himself has now come out and said that he is indeed looking at doing a fourth Avatar film, but the fourth film would likely be a prequel set about 35 years prior to the first Avatar film. A sci-fi trilogy of big successful sci-fi fame, then going back and doing a fourth film as a prequel about 30 years in the past. Does that sound familiar? Sticking with James Cameron, it was being reported that Cameron's long-planned epic sci-fi film Battle Angel was being scrapped. However, Avatar producer John Landau said this: "We'll focus on Avatar for the next 4 or 5 years. Hopefully, right after that, I'm confident you will see it," talking about Battle Angel. "It's one of my favorite stories. I think it is an incredible story, a journey of self-discovery of a young woman. It is a movie that begs the question, what does it mean to be human?" Deadline is reporting that legendary actor Al Pacino is going to play legendary coach Joe Paterno in the upcoming biopic Paterno, based on the award-winning writer Joe Pasanski's biography of the same name. In an instant in time, Joe Paterno went from being one of the most beloved figures in American sports history to one of the most controversial and debated in the wake of the Jerry Sandusky child molestation trial. I think this is fascinating. Like your Bond in the Daniel Craig flavor? Well, good news. It's being reported that the actor has signed on for at least 2 more James Bond films after the upcoming Skyfall. This would make 5 total Bond adventures for Craig, making him the longest-standing James Bond outside of Sean Connery and Roger Moore. The next Bond film, Skyfall, is said to be aiming for a 2000 2014 release. Once again, that's the James Bond film after Skyfall, is said to be aiming for 2014. Of course, Skyfall is coming out later this year. And that will do it for the News Flash. Now, joining me right now to discuss some of these bigger news topics of the day is one of my favorite movie pundits around. He's a film critic over at JoeBlow.com and a regular here on AMC Movie Talk. Jimmy O, Mr. James Oster. Jimmy, thanks for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So let's dive into this.
Okay.
I guess you can say to some degree, James Cameron's Avatar was, I guess you could say it was successful. Right? I mean,
a little bit.
By some definition,
a little bit.
Maybe.
A couple people saw it.
A few people went to go see it. I remember one time, I think opening night, there weren't a lot of empty seats. No, I mean, Denizen over there, I can't remember, what was it? Is it made $2 billion? Yeah. I mean, like over $2 billion. It is by far the highest grossing film of all time. Just crazy successful.
And it's so hard to find people that go, oh my gosh, I really love that movie. That's what on all the boards and all. It's funny how people are so about it. I don't know if you find that, but
I'll say this. Look, I've said this a few times on the show about Avatar. It is fascinating to me that the movie that was at the time so enjoyed and so unbelievably successful. Look, you don't make $1 billion at the international box office, let alone $2 billion, without people going back to see it 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 times. Like when everybody sees a movie, that's like 400 million worldwide. Yeah. To get $1 billion, $2 billion, that means people were going to see this movie 3, 4, 5, 6 times to get that much money. You just have to. But it has been really kind of stunning to me that almost instantly, Avatar kind of disappeared from the pop culture jargon. I mean, you still hear Lord of the Rings and Hobbits mentioned in movies. I mean, Lord of the Rings is so ingrained now with pop culture, and it maintains being that, especially now with the Hobbit films coming out. But you don't hear anybody talking about the Na'vi. You don't hear anybody quoting Avatar anymore, which is really strange considering how successful it was, and people must have liked it to go back 2 and 3 and 4 times.
I think people did, but it seems like Jim always has this kind of, I don't know, even with Titanic, it again, huge, massive film, but you meet so many people that, or didn't like it at all. I think with Avatar, you mentioned Lord of the Rings. Well, you have the books. Those have been around, and people have loved Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Avatar was a new thing, and obviously borrowed a lot with the story. You know, it wasn't the most original idea.
Let me bring this in. This is one of the things now. Now let me preface this by saying, I am somebody who quite enjoyed Avatar. Okay. I had a lot of fun with Avatar, and I'm one of those people who went back to see it 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 times. I saw it a lot of times in theater. Yeah, I mean, just visually, Avatar is one of those films. It's like a Lord of the Rings in the sense that it's a movie you have to see on the big screen. I mean, I don't care. Like, I've got a 60-inch LCD TV for my home theater. I've got a pretty big TV for home theater. That's nothing compared to the actual experience of being in a movie theater, watching on the big screen. And Avatar is one of those films that you just had to watch that way. So I went back and watched it a bunch of times. Now, that being said, I'm going to describe the plot of a movie to you. All right, we're going to play a little game here. Okay. I'm going to describe the plot of a movie to you, and then I'm going to give you a couple of options as to what the movie is, and you tell me which one it is, okay? Okay. All right, so here we go. And you can play along at home, and those of you in the chat board, you can play along with us. So here we go. I'm going to describe a movie plot to you. You tell me what movie I'm talking about. All right. A former military guy, badly injured in the line of service, is called upon once again by his government to go out into the field, as it were, to a faraway outpost where there is a potentially hostile native population. Now, while manning his post there and while fulfilling his duty out there, he actually gets to know and gets kind of incorporated with this native population to the point that he befriends them. He even falls in love with the daughter of their main chief. Now, when his own people start to develop conflict with this native population, he has to decide if he's going to side with his own people or with the native population, and he finally decides to take up arms with the native population against his own people.
Pocahontas.
Well, there's that now. I wasn't even going to mention Pocahontas. I was going to say, so here's now one of these two films. Is it Avatar or is it Dances with Wolves? Of course, the correct answer is...
Yes,
both.
Dances with Wolves.
It's both. It's absolutely both. So,
absolutely.
I mean, as much as I loved Avatar, and I did, it is one of those films that I recommended people go see. I still recommend people see it. I saw it 4 or 5 times in the theaters. I didn't think, and I was cool with it being nominated for Best Picture. I was totally fine with that. But I was also one of those people who's like, because of its blatant similarity to other things, it didn't really feel all that original narrative-wise. Visually, it's nothing compared to it. It was so original visually that I was like, I did not think it should win Best Picture, and I got some people mad at me for saying that. But it is one of those films that ended where they got to do a sequel to this, even narrative-wise, because I remember, I mean, tell me what you think, but I thought at the end of it was like, okay, so, you know, they win the day. Stephen Lang is vanquished. I love Stephen Lang, by the way. I can't get enough of that guy. Even in Conan, I thought he was awesome. Anyway.
He is pretty great, yeah.
But I remember thinking, okay, well, that's great, they won, but the humans are going to come back. So what happens then? And so but what do you think? Do you think it was primed for a sequel, or did you feel like when you saw it that one was enough, or did you feel like, yeah, we got to do more?
Well, can we name a blockbuster now that's not primed for a sequel? That's the question.
But even narrative-wise, like even on its own.
I don't know if one was necessary, sure. Let's put it this way. It's Jim Cameron. He tends to be pretty faithful, whether it's Terminator or you know, or this obviously, I just don't feel like it was necessary. However, I'm curious. I'm curious to see where he takes it. I do like you said, it's visually stunning. You had to see it on the big screen. I get why it was nominated. Simply like you said, beautiful looking film. Do we need another one? I don't think we need another one. Absolutely not. I don't need to go visit these people again. I was fine the first time. I'm done. Okay, see you later. But I'm willing to check it out. I'd like to see more what he's. You know, I mean, come on, the guy's a genius. Let's give him that.
He is. I mean, look, we're not just talking Titanic. For some reason today, when people think James Cameron, they just think Titanic. Yeah. Or Avatar. And look, that's understandable. The movies have made a combined like nearly $4 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, so of course you think that. But I don't even, as much as I really enjoyed Avatar, I wouldn't even put it in my top 3 favorite James Cameron films.
No,
you're talking about his Terminator work. And my all-time favorite James Cameron film, which we've talked...
The Spawning, we all saw The Spawning, right? That's a great movie.
My personal favorite James Cameron film to this day, and we've talked about it a bunch in this show in the recent weeks, is True Lies. I think that is a masterpiece of a film that on its surface is just kind of a fun, actioneer, little funny film. But I think if you really sit down and watch that thing, it is brilliantly constructed. The comedic chemistry, beautifully crafted. It's difficult to take a guy like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who, I mean, everybody loves Arnold, including me. But let's call a spade a spade. A thespian he is not.
No, he is not.
And James Cameron made him believable and likable and engaging, and I bought into it. I haven't bought into Arnold Schwarzenegger in a character that much since Conan the Barbarian. Like, honestly, I've not bought into him as much. I mean, he's awesome as the Terminator, but there's not a lot of acting going on there.
Yeah.
And in True Lies, I just thought he was brilliant. And James Cameron is such a great filmmaker. He's a visionary. He looks beyond the box all the time. And so not only was I curious story-wise to see what happens when the humans come back to, what's the name of the planet? Pandora? Pandora. When the humans come back to Pandora, when the Na'vi have to once again defend themselves, I am very curious to see what happens at that point, because that didn't feel like the end of the story. At the end of the first Avatar, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, that's great, they won, but they're just going to come back in greater numbers, and what happens then? And so I'm kind of excited. I'll be in line to see it, but you're right. I mean, we put up on our Facebook today, and if you don't like us on Facebook, you should. You can find us at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. And when we put up a post today saying we're going to talk about Avatar, it is amazing how divided it is.
Yeah.
There's one comment, I wish I had it in front of me, but check this out on our post on Facebook. There's one comment of a guy who actually said he named his daughter after the female character in Avatar. Nice. So you got a lot of love being expressed for the film, and then you got some people saying, oh, I didn't like it, I hated it. But it's one of those divisive kind of films right now, but let's be honest. When Avatar 2 comes out, and James Cameron is working on Avatar 2 and 3 that he's going to shoot back to back, a lot of people are going to go see it.
There's going to be butts in the seat. I mean, how can you not give in to just the curiosity factor? And frankly, I just want Michelle Rodriguez back somehow. That's all I want. I'll be happy with that. She's so cute.
She is indeed so cute. So I'm looking forward to it personally. I'm excited about it. But here's where I get a little bit iffy.
Okay.
Now, Sigourney Weaver did mention sometime last year that Cameron was going to shoot 3 sequels back to back to back. Now, then last week we talked about how the producer John Landau came out and said that no, we're not doing 3 sequels. We're just going to shoot Avatar 2, Avatar 3 back to back. That's it. Now James Cameron has come out and said that no, he does want to do a 4th film, but a 4th film as a prequel set about 35 years prior to the events of the first Avatar. So looking when humanity first gets to Pandora, when they first encounter the Na'vi, I've already just said I'm pumped about seeing Avatar 2. Mm-hmm. I'm glad they're making it a trilogy. I like trilogies. To me, they just feel neater. Even though most trilogies end on a weak note on the third one. I'm not so sure I'm buying into the idea of going now back 35 years and doing a prequel. We've seen it done before. Star Wars did it.
Yeah, they did.
And not very well.
No, not at all.
So I don't know. So here I am coming from the point of view that I'm loving the idea of looking forward to new Avatar films. And I'm saying a 4th? Like, come on, Cameron, I want to see Battle Angel.
Yeah, I would rather see Battle Angel. Although, you know what? I kind of got to disagree with you on this in the fact that...
Ironic! We have different opinions on looking forward to Avatar 2, but you're going to disagree. Okay, why?
I actually would rather see a prequel. I think they could
Really?
Yeah, it just seems like, you know, like you said, there's George Lucas, bless his heart, he really just screwed up the whole Star Wars thing for me. Because it's almost like you have this build up of the first, the second, third, and then Jar Jar Binks. But this, I almost feel like it'd be interesting to mix it up. Look at Godfather. Look at Godfather 2.
Yes.
I would love to see. I'm all for a prequel.
But Godfather 2 was kind of a mix of prequel and sequel, right?
Well, then why not do that? That would be better. You know, no, I honestly think that you could do something like that.
Right.
Lead up to a 3rd, lead up to a 4th.
So tell the story of a sequel while spending half the time doing a flashback to Robert De Niro as the hero, and how it plays into what is happening in sequel time. So kind of like doing a sequel and prequel at the same time.
I think it'd be a really interesting idea, and I think come on, Jim could pull that off. I think it'd be a more interesting story.
It would be ambitious.
Yes, it would. It would, and no one does it. But again, that's why I want to see more originality from it. I mean, obviously, the same old story. I just think he could do something really fresh that way. Instead of just jumping into, okay, let's gotta do a trilogy because that's what we do, and then jump into a prequel because that's what we do. It seems so formulaic. I like the idea of mixing it up a little bit and you know, taking a chance, getting risky.
Sign me up. No, I think that's a terrific idea. I've never considered that. You do an Avatar 2 that is a mix prequel, sequel. Mm-hmm. Sign me up for that. Now, I still don't like the idea of finishing up a trilogy and then doing a prequel, but you do Avatar 2 as like a Godfather 2 where it's a sequel and a prequel all in one film. I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a better idea than waiting for a 4th film that's a prequel. I'm not digging that idea.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Okay, guys in the chat board, let us know what you think. Do you like the idea of...
Most people don't. I can already tell you, most people are like, no thanks.
Are they saying they don't like the idea of a prequel sequel, or are they just saying they don't like the idea?
Anna, who we've heard from before, says any kind of sequel, prequel, schmequel is a silly idea. Avatar doesn't need any. It's a fine, finished story.
See, and I disagree. Like, for reasons I already said, I felt like it ended that I wanted to know what, because the humans aren't just going to leave Pandora alone at that point. So I'm curious to see what happens. And this whole idea of a Godfather 2 thing, I'm into that. But leave your comments and questions on the board. Cannon will bring them up at the end. Let's move on to item number 2 here.
All right.
This, to me, it has to happen. I'm dying to see how they're going to approach this. Joe Paterno, one of the most beloved, cherished, honored figures in American sports history. Obviously, his life and his legacy ending on a very controversial and sour note with the whole Jim Sandusky child molestation case and the role that, and to whatever degree that Joe Paterno played in that whole controversy. It is being reported now that Al Pacino, I think this is perfection incarnate, that Al Pacino is on to play Joe Paterno in the movie version of the biopic Paterno. That would look at his whole life, including those tragic dark days where the controversy exploded and then he sadly passed away 3 months later of lung cancer. I think this is fascinating, but I'm torn about this. And I'll tell you why I'm torn about this. Is because there are a lot of people out there who, and for those of you who don't know or understand what's going on, because this is now getting into the sports world, but for those of you who don't know much about the Joe Paterno story, basically it says Paterno was head coach at Penn State football for 5,872 years. It felt like just forever. He was beloved, helped a lot of people, did a lot. I mean, you talk to his former players, they talk about him as if he's some kind of deity. Beloved beyond belief. They have a huge bronze statue of him at Penn State.
400 wins, I think it was.
Yeah, ridiculous number of bowl wins and just a huge career. Now, of course, it then came to light that a guy who was one of his assistants by the name of Jerry Sandusky, I think I called him Jim Sandusky earlier, but it's Jerry Sandusky, had been taking little kids and sexually molesting them on Penn State property under the watch of Joe Paterno. That's not to say Joe Paterno was endorsing or encouraging it, and for a large part of the time even knew about it. But it was during that time, and it came to light that somebody saw Jerry Sandusky sexually abusing a child in one of the shower rooms and told Joe Paterno about it. Now, from what we're understanding from the court records, at that point, Joe Paterno, and this was one of his friends, Jerry Sandusky was one of his close friends, Joe Paterno went and reported it to the head of campus police, which I'm a Canadian guy. I don't understand the campus. I've been told campus police are basically the law when you're on one of these giant campuses.
Yeah,
I've never lived on one of the giant campuses.
Basically.
But Paterno went and reported to the head of campus police. He also reported it to his boss, who either was the school president or the school athletic director, which was his chain of command. Now, at that point, if in an ideal world where everything works the way it's supposed to work, that's what should have happened. Paterno should have gone to the head of campus police, and he should have gone and reported to his boss. At that point, the head of campus police and his boss should have then gone to the authorities, and that's the way it should have transpired. It didn't, though. The head of campus police and his boss and the school president did nothing about it. Now, the big controversy comes up with, and there's really something to be said here, that when Paterno, who did know about it, heard about or found out that his bosses and the people he reports to didn't take it any further, that Paterno had a moral obligation himself to then go to the police. Now, he followed the right chain of command. He did what he was supposed to do, but upon finding out that those guys then did nothing about it, that he had a moral obligation to then go further with it, go over their heads, and go to the police himself. Because we're talking about children.
Yeah.
And now you're a father. And I'm not. So I'm really curious to hear your point. And I'll be honest with you, I do not know where I stand on this. Because it's like, this isn't a situation where We're talking about a famous athlete who went out and raped a girl and is still beloved by fans. I'm not going to mention names.
No,
we're not talking about a famous singer entertainment performer who goes and beats up women to the point that they get hospitalized. Once again, I'm not going to mention any names. We're not talking about something that Joe Paterno himself went out and did. We're talking about a sin of omission. That it was a situation that he didn't ask for, that was just thrown on him, that he didn't run out and seek. And I'll be honest with you, there's a part of me that thinks he did what he was supposed to do, and I find it difficult to judge him based on what he should have done beyond that, because I've never, thank goodness, I've never been put in a situation like that. At the same time, there is a moral obligation. We're talking about kids being sexually molested by a monster. So I'm torn. I can't judge Joe Paterno too harshly. I don't think something like this negates the decades and decades and decades of great good things he did. You just talk to the people who knew him and who worked with him about the way he's changed lives. But you cannot ignore somebody passing up a huge moral obligation like that. I don't know. I'm torn. I'm not a dad. You are. How does all this hit you?
This is rough because you want to do the right thing. You want to say, look, this is happening. These kids, I mean, and he knew this isn't like it was, he suspected. There was absolute proof. For me, yeah, I think he should have gone a little farther. I think.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
He should have.
I mean, but with that said, did he commit the ultimate crime? He did, as you said, he went through the, talk to this person, talk to that person, went through the right channels. He just, a lot of times things get covered up. We know this, especially lately. I do think he should have gone to the...
Yeah, no doubt.
I think
no question about it. He should have, absolutely.
I can't even imagine. And it must have been a horror. That's probably one of the things that just drove him to his death, because that's a lot of stress to have on.
Oh.
To know that's going on and know it's under your watch. And I mean, I'm not saying he's, a complete victim, but I don't necessarily think he's, he obviously wasn't supporting the monster, but,
But that moral obligation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's torn. And that's why I think the idea of this as a feature film fascinates me.
Will they focus how much? I mean, they want to do a full biopic. They
Right.
don't want to just focus on this, which I almost think there's enough story right here to.
Oh my! You could do a James Cameron trilogy prequel.
I know, right?
Alone just on the Sandusky thing.
Absolutely.
But it's funny. It is funny how a lot of people who don't actually pay attention to the news, because I would have this debate with people a lot of times. It's like, well, didn't they find out that Joe Paterno molested a bunch of kids? It's like, no, you're not actually. No, that is not what happened. Paterno didn't molest anybody. It was this other guy who did. The problem is Paterno found out about it, and while he did report it, he didn't keep reporting it until something got done about it. It wasn't Paterno who molested anybody, and it's just it drives me crazy.
Well, keep in mind we're in the age of Twitter, where it's like you can just tweet that someone died, and suddenly everyone thinks
it's
news. Jeff Goldblum had died.
Well, it's not just Jeff Goldblum. I heard Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman's dead, and then the guy who played Carlton on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he died. It's like, what?
Which is scary. That catches on. Please don't get your news from Twitter. Please don't do it. Just bad. It's a bad idea.
It's not bad to find stuff out, but then follow it up. Find out if it's actually accurate or not. But Al Pacino playing Joe Paterno. I mean, okay, he's already played the football coach in Any Given Sunday.
Oh my! I was looking at pictures of the guy. I'm like, Al Pacino at his best can just sink into a role. Yeah, sure, he did do that Adam Sandler film. We'll try and forget about that one right now.
Oh, come on. Last 10 years, he's done a bunch of things we'd rather forget about.
Yeah, he's done a lot of really bad movies, so I'd love to see him do something that's worthy of his talent.
Did you see, getting off on a little bit of a side note, the Al Pacino version, I think it was about 3 years, Chapboard, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was about 3 years ago, Al Pacino played Shylock in that version of Merchant of Venice. Mm-hmm. That is the best Fantastic. Al Pacino I've seen maybe ever.
Well, the dude knows his Shakespeare. He's done Shakespeare in the Park.
So good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe he hasn't done a lot of good stuff in the last 10 years, but I think that's more been because he's just been taking whatever.
Yeah.
Don't doubt for a second that he's still one of the best actors alive today, and he can still, when he wants to, he can deliver it. And for something like Joe Paterno, Yes, we've seen him play football coach before. And I know a lot of people don't like Any Given Sunday. I thought Pachino was solid in that film.
He was awesome. I thought it was a good movie.
I did too. I liked it. I'm not going to say it's one of his best, but I thought it was a good movie.
It was an entertaining. It's one of Oliver Stone's best as of late.
Yeah.
Sadly.
I didn't mind Savages. I know we're getting off on a wild tangent. I'm sorry.
Savages had moments of brilliance, but that I hated that narration was just grating,
and the ending was terrible.
Come on,
yeah, the ending was terrible.
That was a sellout.
But
Jeez.
Yeah, I'm all for. I'd be very, very curious to see not only how much time do they spend on the Jerry Sandusky stuff, which obviously has to play a key role in any film that you're going to do, but then how do they portray it? Do they portray Paterno more as an accomplice to the monster, or Paterno as a flawed man who made the wrong decision in a morally impossible situation? I'd be very curious to see which way they go with that, because honestly, if I was making this film, I don't know which way I'd go with it.
I think audiences would not. If you make a film about Paterno and go from that angle where he knew and he's the bad guy, nobody's gonna go see it. Nobody.
It's an interesting dilemma. All right, let's move on from this to our third topic here. If you are like me, I mentioned this in the news flash, you like your flavor of Bond, Daniel Craig. Look, I said this right after Casino Royale. I stand by it today. Even though I didn't like Quantum Solace all that much, I still think that Daniel Craig, and this is a sacrilegious thing to say, is the best James Bond we've ever seen. That includes Roger Moore, that includes Sean Connery, that includes Pierce Brosnan, who I liked all these guys as Bond. I mean, obviously you got to like all these guys as Bond, but there's something about the persona that Daniel Craig brings to it that I'm sure has a lot to do with the way they decided to approach him as a character in the script and everything as well. But Daniel Craig comes across, I've said this a million times, as the first James Bond that I really feel could kick my ass instead of kiss it. There is a badass, and I've always felt that as much as I've loved the Bond films, he is licensed to kill. There has to be a very solid badassness inherent in this suave and slick character. And I've never felt, it's kind of like talking about guys who could potentially play Batman. We're always talking, he's got to be able to be Batman and he's got to be able to be Bruce Wayne. And I've always felt that in James Bond, you got to have that guy who can play the suave, martini shaken, not stirred dude, and the womanizer and all that kind of stuff, with the legitimate badass who will kill you for fun. Because he's licensed to. He has a license to kill. And I've never felt that any of the Bonds, I mean, Roger Moore, more epitomized the suave Bond. Yeah. Sean Connery, kind of the badass. It was more the ruffian kind of dude. Pierce Brosnan, I put him more onto the suave side, you know. Daniel Craig, to me, is the first perfect balance of the suave and the badass. And anyway, they just mentioned that Skyfall will not be the end. There had been some reports recently that Skyfall may be the end of Daniel Craig and James Bond, that it was going to be his third Bond and then he was done. But reports are now coming out that he has signed on for 2 more Bond films following Skyfall. James, your thoughts on
He's
this whole
too
thing?
good. I agree with you completely. I'm when I saw the first one, I was just Casino Royale. I was like, wow, this is Bond. This is You know, I grew up watching the Roger Moore movies. I wasn't familiar with Sean Connery until later on.
Right.
And obviously I think Sean Connery would definitely be second. But for me, Daniel Craig hits nail on the head. It is the badass. It is the suave. But I think they've kind of focused on him being more of an agent and not just hey, I'm going to go to Vegas and gamble and have a lot of sex with a lot of pretty women. It's not about that. And and not that those films, well, except the Roger Moore movies are. I mean, they all had the action. But I don't know. It's like when you watch Daniel Craig, he means it. He absolutely means it.
He's really talented, too. I saw him in A Steady Rain with Hugh Jackman on Broadway in New York. There's the two of them, Hugh Jackman and Daniel Craig. And I'd seen Casino Royale and I liked it, but when I saw him just as a real thespian, a real an actor, I really had a lot more respect for him as Bond because of that. So I really like him.
And you know what, Chatboard, once again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but there's a really, I might be thinking of a completely different play, but I believe this is the one. There's this great story of Jackman and Daniel Craig doing that play and a cell phone going off in the theater. And Craig and Hugh Jackman just pulled up chairs, sat down, and just laid into the guy for like 20 minutes.
That's awesome.
Talking about how impolite it is to bring, but they didn't do it really mean. They also kind of made it kind of funny.
Like part of the story.
Yeah, look it up. It's really, now once again, I might be thinking of a different Hugh Jackman stage play, but I believe that's the one. They
played like cops in the thing, so it would make sense.
Yeah, look it up. Look it up. It's a funny story.
I think that is the one. I love that story.
But you know, but you're just talking about, he's not just a great Bond, Daniel Craig. And I think a lot of people had apprehension about Craig. I remember when they first announced Daniel Craig was going to be the new Bond in Casino Royale, there was this huge online movement and a website called craignotbond.com. And it seemed like the main problem most people had was he's got blonde hair.
Oh, no.
I was like, oh, dear heavens, are you serious? And I just remember I was a younger movie blogger at the time. I just spent weeks making fun of these idiots. These Craig. No, don't get me wrong. If you didn't like Daniel Craig as Bond, that's totally cool.
It's totally legit.
Just don't tell me the main reason you have such a problem with it and you're going to sign petitions about it and whatever is because the dude has blonde hair. Just then I'm going to call you an idiot because you're an idiot. But other than that, but he is a solid performer. Look, and if you need any more proof beyond what we've seen in Bond already, go see The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
everybody was so afraid. Oh, the original's too good because obviously it's based on the Swedish original.
Still better though.
I disagree.
I disagree completely. No,
I remember the first thing I tweeted when I came out of the theater because I was just hoping for a good film because the original one with Noomi Rapace is so good.
So it's perfect.
And I remember I walked out of the theater and I instantly tweeted, I didn't think it was possible, but this Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is better than the Swedish version.
No. No. Have you seen the extended version?
I don't know that I've seen the extended version. No, I just saw the actual film that was presented.
I watched the extended version, and I appreciated it. It's a very different movie. Don't get me wrong. Fincher's is great, but no, it doesn't. I love the original version, especially the extended version. It feels like I know, it feels really, she's so good in it. She is,
no doubt.
Rudy was great, don't get me wrong, but I just didn't get the feeling like this. I don't know, there was some kind of this intense feeling for it's such a slow burn, and obviously
both films are really.
Fincher's is a little bit more, it's Fincher. He has his own style. Yeah, not both great movies, but give me the original.
All right, and I will take the modern, but we'll agree. Daniel Craig,
he rocked,
brilliant in it,
fantastic.
I mean,
fantastic.
So I'm so glad to hear that he's going to be back. I'm really excited too that within the reports they're saying that the next Bond film they're aiming for 2014, just 2 years away instead of having to wait for 5 more years, which is kind of what we've been fearing or getting used to, or that that it wouldn't have Daniel Craig in the first place.
Now, hopefully they don't rush into it either. That would be because. I kind of like the fact that they take time with these movies because then when they come out, it's just because Quantum of Solace came out pretty quickly.
Yeah, it did, but I don't think the problem with Quantum of Solace was in the rush factor because I believe they were working off a script that they had in development for a very long time. Yeah. So I think it was more just poorly executed. And once again, I didn't hate.
No, I didn't hate it either.
Quantum of Solace.
He made it work for me.
It was just the bar got raised.
I love her. Oh, she's so cute.
Okay, sorry, I just had to have a moment. Okay, but the bar they raised with Casino Royale was just so high. Yeah. That it's much like The Dark Knight going to The Dark Knight Rises, right? I mean, it's just The Dark Knight raised the bar so freaking high that if The Dark Knight Rises wasn't perfection, which in my point of view it wasn't, it had too many flaws. As good as it was, I felt a little bit disappointed coming out of Dark Knight Rises, and I felt the same way about Quantum of Solace because Casino Royale was so good that I was kind of destined to come out of Quantum Solace disappointed, but that being said, we got to move on to the next thing here.
I just got to say one thing. I think Skyfall is going to blow everyone away.
Don't the trailers look amazing?
I think it's going to blow everybody away.
Yeah. I'm excited about it.
Can't wait.
A little sad that John Cleese isn't Q anymore.
I know.
I love John Cleese.
I know. He's great.
Okay, let's move on to this. Hey, look. Been talking for some time here that this new Judge Dredd movie coming out, just simply called Dredd.
Dredd 3D, come on.
Dredd 3D, thank you. Starring Karl Urban. Look, I'll be honest with you. The trailer, I've said this before on this show. The trailer for Dredd, no good. It's not good. I remember sitting down and having drinks with a couple of people, a couple of reps from Lionsgate, and just telling them flat out, like, this trailer looks bad. To me, it's a bad-looking trailer. So now, and we had lined up Karl Urban to come and meet us at Comic-Con to be our guest moderator, if you will, our guest celebrity moderator on a panel that I run every year at Comic-Con called the Masters of the Web. Where myself and a bunch of other movie webmasters get together, talk movies, and we have a celebrity guest on the panel as well. And Karl Urban was lined up. And I was a little bit nervous because I didn't like the trailer for Dredd. And I was nervous that I was going to have to fake it with Karl being there. But we had a special screening of Dredd the night before the panel. Man, I was so scared. I was so worried that this movie was going to be terrible. It was going to be bad. I didn't like the look of the trailer. Dear heavens! Dear heavens!
Hallelujah!
This movie is so good.
It's so good.
This movie Dredd is so much fun. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to over-exaggerate. I'm not going to say it's as good or as fun as Avengers.
It's not a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's not a masterpiece.
But I'm telling you, if you are a fan of just fun, not violence as in Silence of the Lambs, I'm going to cut her open slowly, blah, blah, but action violence. If you are a fan of action violence, this movie is going to give you a Viagra reaction like nobody's business. I came out of that film, instantly tweeted, just saw the most violent film I've ever seen in my life, and that's a very good thing. This movie is so balls to the wall. We're going to go for the fun, gore, violent stuff. Oh my goodness, this is such a fun movie.
It was so, I mean, if you like that kind of movie, if you like the old school 80s, just shoot 'em up action movies, this feels so true to that.
Oh.
Even though it has, it's got the technology where everything's like the slow-mo
the
effect.
Phantom
is
camera
so
at
cool.
1,000 frames per second slow-mo.
Tell me you weren't dreading that, though. Tell me you weren't like,
I was scared to death of it.
More slow-mo garbage.
Everybody trying to mimic the Matrix stuff and blah, blah.
But it's not like that at
Totally
all.
different level.
At all. And Karl, hats off
Karl
to
Urban. How do you, explain this to me. How do you give a good performance? First of all, true comic book fans of Judge Dredd, what is the one thing they've always demanded from a Dredd movie? Don't take the helmet off. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to see Dredd's eyes. But how do you deliver a performance when this much of your face is constant? Well, in my case, it's an improvement. But when this much of your face is covered with a mask, how do you give a performance? Karl Urban gives it.
Yes, he does. Yes,
like,
he does.
How good is he in this movie?
You know what, though? It's
just not Shakespeare.
It's not Shakespeare.
Right.
He's good at this stuff. He's proven it before. He was great in Red. He's always good in this
He's
kind
always
of role.
good, yeah.
But man, does he nail this? If you're a fan of Dredd, if you're a fan of the comics, I don't know how you couldn't like this.
It is a faithful adaptation.
And Lena Headey.
As the villain Mama.
She is disturbingly evil.
Yeah, isn't she great?
Awesome.
It's a mix. But the great thing about Lena Headey in this is that not only is she disturbingly evil, there's also this great twinge of, sometimes when movies try to portray the bad guy as insane, they come across as less threatening. They can just come across a little bit silly. Lena Headey was a great mixture of pure evil, insanely intimidating, off her rocker nuts, and a little bit of vulnerability at the same time.
Yeah.
That it's like, I was scared to death of her and wanted her on screen every single second. She's a great villain.
There are so many moments where she just has this kind of, she seems like she's stoned all the time in a good way.
Yeah.
And because
which makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense with the movie. And you're watching her in the delivery when she's just kill him.
Now, the whole reason we're bringing up Dredd is not just to talk about Dredd, although you're going to probably hear me talk about Dredd,
I love
a
Dredd
lot in the coming weeks. I'm so excited about watching it again. But it's because when I came out of that theater and I tweeted most violent film I've ever seen, and that's a good thing, I was actually really nervous that I was going to, because I didn't stick around and talk to a lot of people after the screening. I mostly talked with Karl, and I talked with some of the other Lionsgate people and a couple of my friends who came. I didn't have a lot of chance to talk to the other film pundits who were there to get their take on it. So I was kind of nervous that after putting up that tweet about how great Dredd is, that I was then going to read the other people saying, oh, come on, why are they... Everybody on Twitter loved it. The buzz about Dredd at Comic-Con went through the roof. And as of right now, this is the part that, as of the moment that we're recording this, which is on Monday, September the 10th at about almost noon Pacific Standard Time, Dredd right now is holding a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I'm sure that number will drop. I'm sure that number will drop.
Oh, of course it will.
But with about 35 reviews from actual film critics being taken into account, right now Dredd is holding a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is not an easy thing for any film to do.
That is not.
And I'm shocked. Not only was I shocked about how good Dredd was, I'm shocked that other people are agreeing with me. It's crazy.
Well, see, I lucked out because I went when I was at the same screening, and a bunch of us from Joe Blow went, and we were all like, "Oh, this is going to be terrible." I literally had to ask our editor. I'm like, "You want the review like right after? Because I've got to interview Carl right in the morning." And I
what happens when I have to put up a bad review and then talk to him tomorrow?
And he's going to see this, and he's going to hate. And I was so more than pleasantly surprised. It just. It kicked my butt.
No, I agree. I had such a good time with it. Well, listen, folks, by all means, once again, keep putting in your questions, your comments into the chat board for those of you who are watching us live. And don't forget, you can watch us live. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, you can watch us live every Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Los Angeles time. That's 2 p.m. New York time, and you can see the web address below for those times. And if you are watching us live, hey folks, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us now. We'll put up a little bit more a little bit later, but subscribe to our AMC Theaters Movie News YouTube channel. You can find us at youtube.com/AMC Theaters. All of the AMC Movie Talk shows get put up there, including our news videos, editorials, celebrity interviews. You don't want to miss a thing. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. One of the other things we like to do in the show, it is now mailbag time, where we encourage you guys to send us, you don't just have to be watching us live to ask us questions, you can email us your questions anytime. Now, since we have changed the name of the show from For Your Consideration to AMC Movie Talk, you can email your questions to amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Once again, you can email your questions to us 24/7 at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. And we have got a few items from the mailbag already selected from people sending us in. Cannon's got them pulled out back there. Cannon, what do we got in the mailbag?
The first mail is from Anna Salmaso, a.k.a. Anna_BR on the chat board. What's up? She's always on. She's awesome. She always has interesting things to say. She says, I've been following the online coverage on the Toronto International Film Festival, and personally I've been incredibly surprised by the overall praise of some of the films that some of the films have been receiving. Excuse me. Do you think this is a result of studios postponing their best releases on purpose towards the fall to start heating up for a possible Oscar race? Could this be a reaction to try and fix the quantity over quality aspect of the summer blockbusters? Or could this be just a case of Hollywood finally taking chances, rethinking strategies, and delivering genuinely great cinema again? And go.
Okay. First of all, let's say this. And studios putting their Oscar bait films, by Oscar bait I mean these are films that studios believe have legitimate shots at some Oscar attention.
Yeah.
Near the end of the year is not a new thing. This has been going on for a long time.
Yes.
Which I think is unfortunate.
It's sad because, well, the problem is Academy voters seem to have no memory at all. So if it came out in even September half the time, they're like, wow, I don't, what was that movie? I don't remember that.
Well, see, I don't know if they have no memory at all or if the studios with these Oscar potential films treat them like they have no memory at all.
Maybe.
Because they back end, and here's the unfortunate thing. Like, I get the strategy of putting these Oscar potential films near the end of the year as close to the Oscars as possible to be fresh in the, not only be fresh in the minds of the voters, but hopefully that the Oscar buzz will then help their current box office. It's hard to have Oscar buzz in March.
That is
right?
true. That is true.
So this isn't a new thing, but the unfortunate thing is when you got like films that are Oscar bait that are opening in limited release, which qualifies them, like at the very end of the year, then you've got people talking about the Oscars about films that they've never seen or had the chance to see yet.
Yeah.
That's not the Oscars' fault. That's just the way the studios release them.
That's the way it is.
So this isn't a new thing. The idea of, though, I have this argument with people all the time. I think quality, really good quality filmmaking and cinema has not gone away anywhere, nor has it gone anywhere for a very long time. Is there a lot of bad films that come out every year? Absolutely. You got like 500 to 800 films coming out every year. A big portion of those are going to be bad films no matter what you do. But I think within all those films, every year, and you can just sit back and look at the nominee list from the Oscars every year from Best Picture. Every year there is consistently great. No, look, there are better years than others.
Yeah.
But still, at the end of the year, you can at least sit back and say, hey, if you're a film fan, there has been some incredible cinema this year. And you run down the list. Maybe it's only 10 really great films out of 500. Maybe it's 20 great films out of 500. But if you're a film fan, every year there is some great, great film. Some great cinema for film fans. So I think that's been there every year. I don't think it's a return to it. I think it's always there. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm always a little annoyed at this time of year because I'm really, really pushing. I love The Gray. It's one of my favorite films so far this year. And
I agree. I'm right there with you.
I know I'm really worried it's not going to get any Oscar consideration. I think it should, absolutely.
But it's like Avengers, right? It's hard to say at this point when all these Oscar contending films haven't even come out yet and we haven't had a chance to see them yet. So it's difficult to say.
I would love to see them come out, or even, like you said, you get these films that come out, like it comes out in 2 theaters on Christmas Day just so it can get an Academy Award nomination, just to qualify. And then the average audiences are like, I don't know what that is. What is that? And that I don't necessarily think that's the best way to go about it. I think a month or two earlier would be nice, but it's something they've been doing for a long, long time. It ain't going to change.
I agree. It's unfortunate. I would really love to see these films come out earlier in the year so that when we start talking about Oscar buzz, everybody's had a chance to see those films, then re-release them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they can benefit financially from now it's got Oscar buzz, and you can reintroduce audiences to it, but at least a good core of the audience has seen it already and can be excited about the Oscars. That's my thought. Anyway, what else do we got, Cannon?
All right. The next email is from Vanessa Sanchez. She says, hi, John and crew. I'm really excited about seeing the new Indiana Jones marathon on Saturday, but it got me to thinking, do you think Harrison Ford will ever be a relevant actor again? I hope so. What do you think? P.S. Please keep doing this amazing show. It's now the only movie show online that I watch. Woohoo.
That's nice.
Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. I'll let you take this one first because I need to look up an article I wrote a long time ago.
Yeah, it's really sad because Harrison Ford was one of those guys. In fact, I'm looking him up on IMDb right now because I'm trying to remember the last really amazing role that he took on, and for some reason I always think of Harrison Ford, the great Harrison Ford, like The Witness, The Mosquito Coast.
Sabrina, Regarding Henry.
I wouldn't go Sabrina.
Working Girl. You wouldn't go Sabrina?
Nope.
Are you out of your mind?
Nope.
That is one of the best remakes. Oh, okay. Jimmy, what are you talking about?
Did you see Morning Glory?
With great. Yes, I saw Morning Glory.
Yeah, that was
Sabrina was awesome though. Do not put Sabrina in with Morning Glory.
It wasn't as bad as Morning Glory.
Anyway, you were saying.
Who's to say? You never know. He could come up with one of those, like, I don't know, those Nick Nolte roles in Warrior that just people are like, wow, yeah, that's a Harrison Ford, and I hope so. I mean, we all grew up watching him. I think everyone wanted to be him. Pretty much anyone who watched Star Wars wanted to be Harrison Ford, or watched Indiana Jones wanted to be him. And I think, sadly, the last Indiana Jones kind of put a damper on things. I'd love to see him do Indiana Jones again in a good movie.
Right.
I wouldn't say I think he has a chance to be respectable again, whatever that means, but
All right. I think the word was relevant.
Relevant?
Relevant
okay.
again. Okay. Yeah. This is something I wrote. I just had to look this up quick. This is from an article I wrote in 2003.
Oh, no.
This is an article I wrote in 2003 where I talked about this very specific thing about Harrison Ford and where does he go from here. But it's basically the last really, when he was on his roll, I mean, we're talking about all those films, not to mention the Indiana Jones films, the Star Wars films, the Henry and Sabrina and tons. Really? Then there was Air Force One, which I thought was a really good, fun film.
Didn't like the movie, but I liked him.
Okay, I did. I liked Air Force One. But then after that, something funny happened. he kind of disappeared after. Now, here's what I wrote in 2003. Now, this is going to sound a little bit brash, but I was writing it on my own movie blog at the time. Okay. 6 Days, 7 Nights with Anne Hesh came out of nowhere to punch Harrison Ford fans in the proverbial balls. An awful, terrible movie, not the worst movie ever made by any stretch of the imagination, but the first truly poor Harrison Ford-led film I had ever seen. Surely it must have just been a fluke, right? Well, then came one of the most truly awful films I've ever seen in the past decade, and maybe deserves a spot on the worst 20 major films of all time list, Random Hearts. A film so bad that it even reported that the director just didn't know where to go with it, and once sat down with the leads in the film to ask them, what do you think this movie is about? That was 2 films in a row, but it was not the last by a long shot. What Lies Beneath was just a terrible, awful, quote-unquote horror film.
Yeah.
Then you got like K-19, The Widowmaker, which had the potential to be really great and just kind of went flat. Hollywood Homicide. I mean, it just came like film after film after film. Just started.
Don't forget Firewall.
Firewall with Paul Bettany.
I know
who I like.
And Virginia Madsen.
Yeah,
she's a great actress.
And it just fell flat and flat and flat. And then I go on in this article that I wrote way back when to say, look, okay, it seems like now what we need is the next Indiana Jones film to come out, and that'll salvage things. But even then, he's going to be 65 at that time. Where does he go from there? Blah blah blah. The long and the short of it is this: we've seen. It's like the Al Pacino thing. We've seen enough from Harrison Ford. It's not like he had 1 or 2 fluke movies.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford is a great actor. And then, of course, there was Cowboys and Aliens. But Harrison Ford is a great actor who has gone on this inexplicable streak of bad films. And now where do we go from here? I'm not sure we'll ever see him play Indiana Jones again. I'd like to see them take another crack at it and do it better than they did in the last one.
Yeah.
I am so looking forward to Saturday. That's September 15th for the Indiana Jones Marathon. I know that sounds like a cheap plug for an AMC thing, but it's true. I'm going to be there. I cannot wait for this Indiana Jones Marathon.
My question, will Indy 4 be cooler because you're seeing them all together?
I hope so.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I hope so.
If it were.
So I'm looking forward to that, but I don't know that we'll ever see him come back again. And then what do you do with an approaching 70-year-old Harrison Ford? I mean, look what Stallone's doing. Look what Schwarzenegger's doing. Look, I mean, like taking that away, but Harrison Ford is an actor. He's not an icon like a physical icon like an Arnold Schwarzenegger or a Sylvester Stallone. What does an almost, if he's not already past 70-year-old Harrison Ford do next to make him? Can he be a legit A-list leading man, relevant again in Hollywood at this point in his career with the streak that he's had? I hope so, but I don't know. Your thoughts?
You said it right there. He's an actor.
Yeah.
Look, I remember going back a ways when Paul Newman did The Verdict.
Oh gosh,
people were, wow, and I think he's got one of those in him. I really do. I hope he finds it soon, because I do think he could. It's not like he needs to do an action movie. It's not like that's his bread and butter, even though he is known for indie. He can do other stuff, and I guarantee there's that role out there that's going to blow everyone away. He's going to get an Oscar, at least, if not, probably win.
Right.
Because, that's what they do whenever they, they give it to the old guy. I think there's a role out there for him. I don't know if it'll make him necessarily a relevant leading man. I think that's not going to happen.
All right. What else we got?
Well, just real quick, I just wanted to say, I think as Indiana Jones, he's going to have to be that, like, dynamic man in the movie, he might have to become, like, the teacher figure, because he's old. You can't do all the physical aspects of the film that Indiana Jones does. You just can't do it. I mean, or it would be gimmicky for the old guy to be doing that.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous.
It's gonna have to be like, I'm your mentor, man,
and
to
yet,
the next Indiana Jones. But then that would have this whole weird spinoff, and you have to make new Indiana Jones, and I just don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, they tried that with Indy 4 to a certain extent. It just didn't work.
And yet, we loved Expendables 2. And we should mention, there has been rumors about the producers of Expendables talking to Harrison Ford about Expendables 3. We'll have to see where that all goes.
I like it. I would be.
I'm down.
Put him in. Let's sign him up.
All right. Our next mail is from Rashad, and he's from Atlanta. Woohoo! Southern person just like me. Cloud Atlas has been getting amazing reviews at the Toronto International Film Festival. Do you think this film will be well received by the general public movie audience, or do you think it will be like the Tree of Life, a beautiful film that nobody will see?
I'm going to start with that one because
go ahead.
I'm a huge fan of Tree of Life. I think it was a great movie. If you know what you're going into, it's not. I mean, I always call Malick's films. It's kind of cinematic poetry. It's not narrative. It is poetry. Thin Red Line. There's always kind of this.
A visual haiku, if you will.
A visual haiku. That's it. With Cloud Atlas, even though it does kind of have that air of it's very hoity-toity and very, very upper class type of thing. It's also the guy, the Wachowski, the guy.
It's the Matrix.
Yeah,
it's the V for Vendetta
duo.
writers.
Yeah. I gotta say that right. And Tom Twyker.
Yeah.
I just think there's a little bit more. I think people have forgotten about Speed Racer, which was not that bad of a movie.
Yes,
by the
it
way.
was. It was that bad of a movie.
No.
Oh yeah.
You like Sabrina? What are you talking about? Serious.
You're off your rocker. I don't know where you're coming from
Speed
today.
Racer was so much fun for kids. Oh, come on.
So was Jar Jar Binks.
No, not my kid.
Okay. Anyway.
But yeah, I do. I don't know if box office hit. No way. No way.
I mean, I think I said the exact same thing the other day. It's like, okay, first of all, I did not like that first 3 hour and 27-minute trailer that they put out.
I didn't like the whole movie.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like it at all. I thought it just felt like look how artistic we are. Look how, and it just.
I liked it, but yes,
it felt incomprehensible, and it just felt like a visual mess to me. That being said, I also said, I got the feeling this movie is going to be like 3 Shades of Awesome. Mm-hmm. And I think, who was it? Rashad? I think Rashad. Yeah. I think you nailed it. I think this is going to be one of those films. Unless they come up with a brilliant marketing campaign between now and when it comes out, I don't think it's going to get a wide audience. I don't think it's going to be a box office hit. I think it's going to be one of those films. I think you're absolutely right, Rashad. I think it's going to be one of those films that maybe gets Oscar contention.
Yeah, it depends on the Oscar. If
saying that we haven't seen it yet, we don't know. It could be awful. It could be, as we suspect, really brilliant. But I just don't feel like a lot of people are going to want out and see it, which is really a shame if it is as good as we got the sneaking suspicion that it is going to be. It's going to be a real shame if people don't go see it. And I just don't know how you market something like this. I do know this. That first trailer they put out is not the one that's going to put butts in the seats. I hope they get on board and figure out a way to market it better. That's just... Well,
it's a hard thing to market. I mean, the thing is, I love a movie that takes a chance and does that. I would rather see a movie that goes balls out to try to do something completely original, completely insane, and it people hate it. I would almost rather see that than a movie that's, well, you know what, we know audiences like this, so let's make this type of movie and let's make it this way and, follow a structure, follow a form. I love when people do that. I love that they're taking a chance.
I like it more when they take a chance and they make it good.
Well, of course, but I'm
like, I've been watching Master Chef lately. This show on TV about cooking. My wife is a foodie. And she's, we've been on one of Chef Gordon Ramsay's shows. Actually, we were on what's the one where they revamp we were actually on a Kitchen Nightmares, and we always have this debate about yes, make the plate up to look really beautiful and try something that people haven't done before. Put oysters with vanilla ice cream. Try something original and creative. And I get all that. But at the end of the day, when I put that thing in my mouth, I want to be happy. Don't go there. But when I put that food in my mouth and I start to chew on it, I want it to taste good. To me, that is above and beyond the absolute 100% most important thing. Now, if you can do both, if you can make something that is delicious while doing something completely unconventional that a lot of people haven't tried or would think of, and all, that just makes it even better.
Well, what about a movie that
Bacon and chocolate is awesome.
Bacon and chocolate. Actually, a friend of mine who's a film critic for I believe MSN, James Rocky.
Oh yeah.
Fellow Canadian, actually from my hometown. I remember the very first time I got together with James, he had baked bacon brownies
Yeah, awesome.
Really?
Hello, duh.
Brought over bacon brownies. And I remember thinking that this is insane, and yet it created a magical playland in my mouth when I put it in. It was so good. But anyway, getting back to your
for
point.
Everything.
Yes.
I think sometimes a movie that only pleases half the audience is still pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
I think this is going to be one of those movies.
All right. Well, folks, we're running out of time, so let's throw it open to you guys on the chat board to see what you guys... That was the last one, right?
Yeah, that was the last one. And there's just a few questions from the chat board. They're all having lots of fun talking to each other. Not me. The first question is from Colin Emerson. He says, what are your thoughts about the rumor that Viggo Mortensen will play Doctor Strange in Thor 2?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a huge Viggo fan, so I'm all for that.
Yeah, Viggo, I was heartbroken recently to find out that they had scrapped Eastern Promises 2.
I know.
I mean, to me...
Well, so was Cronenberg. I actually talked to him literally moments after it happened, and he was like, talk to the higher ups.
Go talk to the president of the studio. They were ready to shoot. They had everything all set. They were ready to shoot Eastern Promises 2. Look, as much as I love Viggo Mortensen in Lord of the Rings, which he was the perfect Strider. I mean,
you're
he
not
was
going to
great.
trust Viggo. You're not going to go there.
I think he was even better in Eastern Promises.
I think he's
I
magnificent.
think he was so good in Eastern Promises. So I was heartbroken to hear that. Look, I would be up for it completely, except for two things. One, I really want Marvel to resist the urge to overpopulate. Look, they've already got Guardians of the Galaxy coming. They're already talking Ant-Man. They're already talking about they're talking. There's even rumors out there and talk about Fast and Furious boy, Vin Diesel playing Vision, playing Vision.
They saw Pitch Black and they're like, hey,
It's too much. So personally, as much as I love Viggo Mortensen, I don't want to see him in there as Doctor Strange. I don't think it'll happen.
I disagree. I want him.
All right.
Yeah, no, I'm up for it.
What else do we got?
Okay. The next two questions are from the same person, G-Funk 1086. The first question goes back to James Bond. Will we ever see a non-white James Bond?
Fascinating question.
That's a good question.
Very good question.
I'm going to go now. Let's divide this into two separate questions. Let's divide the shoulds from the wills. Okay, let's start with will. I don't think we will ever see an African American James Bond. I think that character is just way too ingrained. Look, it was different. And I sound hypocritical because just last week I was saying, look, Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin was a genius stroke because I think he embodied everything about Kingpin, aside obviously from the being really, really obese and being bald and white. Well, he was bald. Yeah. But at the same time, there's something about the classic English gentleman is so ingrained as a part of who James Bond is, and that classic English gentleman picture that we all have in our head is a European Caucasian dude. So I don't think we ever will see that. I don't think that translates as well as, say, a Michael Clark Duncan taking over a role like Kingpin. I think this is a different situation, so I don't think it. Now, it's hard to say. I'm not really up on how is James Bond viewed and thought of in the UK, because I'm not in the UK. I have no idea. So when you're talking about shoulds, I have no idea. I have no opinion on the should, but I don't think it will ever happen. Your thoughts?
I think it could be interesting. I don't think it won't happen. You can almost guarantee that. There is that idea of who James Bond is, the English gentleman, as you said. I just don't see them going. It would be interesting to see maybe a different shade, but just someone who's a little more culture. I just, if anything, we'll see maybe. I'd love to see like a James Bond type.
Well, see, I was about to say that. What we are missing, we're definitely missing. Because look, James Bond is not the only super spy franchise out there. We got the Mission Impossibles. Yeah. We've got the Bourne stuff. I think there is room and a need for an African American style super spy thriller. And you know who would be awesome for it?
Oh.
And his name is eluding me right now, which is so crazy because I love this guy. He played the villain. He played the agent in Serenity. And he was in Red Belt.
I know his name.
And he was in He was in Reign Over Me. Yeah, it's a very weird, hard to pronounce name. He was in Reign Over Me, and he was. It's not Chiwetel Ejiofor, is it? No, that's.
Yeah,
it is. It is. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
He's awesome, and if you watched him play the bad guy in Serenity, he is smooth and suave and scary. And it's like you put together a spy agent kind of franchise like that with him as your lead. Box office, and I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm shocked that they haven't already. It seems like just logical to go there.
I think there's a place for that. And I think there's a need for it as well.
I got a black James Bond.
Dennis has got a black James Bond. Who?
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba.
Yes. Brilliant.
He is awesome.
Everybody loves that guy too. He's brilliant.
Yeah,
he's
he's. Look, we were just talking about who's a guy who can play physically intimidating the badass and be slick and suave. Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
I think personally, I don't know. I don't think it'll ever happen for them to actually make a James Bond. But I think, like you said, a new guy, like a new story would work for a different.
Yeah, give us a new franchise.
Yeah.
Absolutely, launch one. Do it. Yep. We'll go see it
with Idris. We want Idris.
I think we've seen enough Mission Impossible, but that's just me.
Okay, what else we got?
Last question is also from G-Funk 1086. Should someone be able to receive an acting Oscar if the movie itself was terrible?
Absolutely. You know what? I have this argument with people all the time. Just because, and you know what? This is true in movies as it is in sports, because I have sports arguments with people all the time. Mm-hmm. A movie is an insanely collaborative effort. Much like team sports, football, for example, is a team sport. There are some people talk to me and say, once again, I draw on sports analogies a lot, but say, oh, you're not great unless you got rings. Unless you got rings, you don't know what you're talking about. Dan Marino, arguably one of maybe the best quarterback in the history of the NFL, minimum top 3, never got a championship ring. Why? Because he wasn't a good enough quarterback? Well, if you say that, you're just insane. You're out of your mind. You absolutely don't know what you're talking about, and there's nothing for us to discuss. No, because the team he was on was never good enough. No matter how good of a quarterback Dan Marino was, his team was never good enough to go and get that ring. And look, I've had this debate too in basketball with people. People before this past year, people say, oh, LeBron James. I'm not a huge basketball fan, but oh, LeBron James, you can't consider him great because he don't got rings. Well, that's because he was on the worst team in the NBA. Mm-hmm. They say, well, Kobe's better because Kobe got rings. How many rings do you think Kobe Bryant would have had if the Lakers didn't trade for him away from New Orleans? How many rings do you think Kobe Bryant would get if New Orleans didn't trade him away when he was a rookie to Shaquille O'Neal at the LA Lakers? None. That's how many rings he would have. Does that take away how good of a basketball player he is? Obviously not. He's still that good. Just because an actor is in a great movie, I have this argument with people all the time. The co-star of Jackie Chan in the Rush Hour films.
Owen Wilson.
No, Rush Hour.
Wait. Rush Hour. Okay, I'm thinking.
Chris Tucker, right?
Oh, sorry, Chris Tucker.
I keep telling. Look, Chris Tucker can't act, but then people will bring up not the Sixth Sense, the Fifth Element. I get the numbers. The Bruce Willis number movies.
Yeah.
The Fifth Element. The Fifth Element was awesome. How can you say he can act? Yes, the movie was awesome, but that doesn't mean he was awesome in it. You also get lots of examples of bad movies with brilliant performances. And look, an acting award should go as an individual award. It's not a collaborative award. Although an argument can be made about the actor working with the director. Mm-hmm. But you can be in a movie with a bad script, a bad director, bad story and everything, but that actor just gives the best performance you possibly could. I mean, it doesn't make a bad movie a good movie. So yes, I think that if an actor gives a performance that is that good and really sells the character and all that kind of stuff, if the movie's good or bad, that should be taken out of it. That's just my thought, your thought.
Absolutely. I mean, well, haven't there been movies nominated that have won that the movies were maybe mediocre?
Right.
There's been a ton of those. I keep thinking of The Vow, which was a huge hit this year and for Channing Tatum.
Right.
Not a great movie. It is what it is. It's a sappy romantic love story.
It's a Sparks
movie. You know what? Jessica Lange is phenomenal in it. She gives this one performance where you're like, wow, I'm truly... It's Jessica Lange. Come on.
Speaking of Jessica Lange, The Debt that she did earlier this year with Helen Mirren and Why am I forgetting everybody's names today? But Avatar boy.
Oh yeah, Sam.
Sam Worthington. Just that movie was okay. That movie was pretty good. Yeah. But Jessica Chastain in that movie,
absolutely,
unbelievably brilliant. And I don't think she's going to get a Best Supporting nomination for that.
She might,
but I hope she does. I mean, she got one for The Help, which I believe she might. No, it was a Golden Globe she got nominated for. Either way, Jessica Chastain was awesome in that. So there's an example. So yes, I do think people should be able to be considered, even if the movie itself as a whole doesn't turn out to be that good. Well, listen, folks, that will do it for us. We are way over time, but thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, you can watch this show live every Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m. LA time, 2 p.m. New York time at the address below. That's www.ustream.tv/channel/AMC-theater. Once again, you can see the address below. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Once again, at youtube.com/AMC Theaters. And folks, just join us all the time. I want to thank so much, once again, Jimmy Oster for being here. Jimmy, thank you.
It's fun. Thanks.
Great
questions, by the way, from everybody.
Yeah, once again. Sitting at the back table, taking your questions and everything, Camden Jackson.
Thanks for talking with me today, guys, on the chat roll. Good questions.
Where can people find you on Twitter?
You guys can tweet me at Camden Bliss, CandenBliss. And,
of course, you can find Jimmy on Twitter at Jimmy to the O.
Jimmy to the O.
And, of course, the guy who always runs the show that is still off camera over there, Mr. Dennis Zen, for doing everything that he does for us over here. And thank you guys for joining us. Don't forget to join us again on Thursday. We'll be right back here once again. Spread the word. Let people know about it. Keep watching. My name is John Campia. And until next time, bye-bye. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button below. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and join us at amctheaters.com and watch one of our other AMC Movie News videos below.